The next one is by Dr. Vaishali Nandan from GEZ.
Morning, everybody. I'm trying to, in my presentation, address the vast scope that has been given, but let's see how much I cover. I will be, during the course of time, raising a lot of questions. The questions are not only for me, but also for you. So probably in the panel discussion or something, probably we achieve some answers, but let's see where we reach. We saw this model in the morning, so I will not really repeat it. Municipal solid waste phases, we all know, the uncontrolled waste dumping, going to waste resources. We are somewhere in phase 2. We have not really gone up too much, but there's, of course, we have moved from phase 1. The solid waste management rules, again, refer to segregation at source, collection, transportation, treatment, scientific of landfills, in a gist. But as already stated earlier, the reality on the ground is different. There's no or incomplete segregation or informal recycling. There's composting, there's RDF, waste to energy you might call it, or otherwise, and scientific or unscientific scientific disposal. The system weakness, I think all of us are aware of it. It's put in a certain way where I will start at the inadequate land use planning and enforcement angle. The other angles like institutional weakness, the financial sustainability as just expressed by Dr. Shastri, lack of experience of the private sector involvement. Of course, the ULB is equally lacking in trying to govern it. The need for capacity building of the elected representatives, I think a lot of people must have already experienced. They're the stumbling block sometimes where the tender is not passed, a good process is not put in place. There's a lack of environment for awareness, weak enforcing, but all of them together make for weak implementation. So it's actually the project on the ground that suffers. So that's my first question. So is segregation possible in ULBs? GIZ has been supporting certain cities. I'm putting some photos now that is, over a period of time that either we have helped with or seen, or the city's efforts. They're probably not the best practice, as I would say, but definitely worth noting and seeing that if there is enough enforcement, things happen. So the first example I have is, with collection, there's what really means is municipal staff mixes primary collection, secondary collection, or at the collection point there's mixed waste. What the citizen sees is, mixed transported waste. For the transportation, the vehicle is, of course, either designed for unsegregated waste, or the citizen is seeing mixed waste being transported. There's a legal link. Probably the municipal bylaw doesn't really address or doesn't have those finding authority, or it's not really exercised. So you see in Kochi, it might be a rudimentary system, but what you see down the line is fairly segregated waste being monitored at the secondary collection point. It might not be good, but the fact that it's happening, the citizens are doing a certain process, it's achievable, it's possible, to whichever framework it can happen. Nasik, if it's not there in the legal stipulation for segregation of waste, it's being done at the Ghanta Gadi. This is the vehicle that collects, or the citizens sometimes also, of course, give segregated waste if they see that the fellow is segregating. But again, coming back to the missing links, the transportation needs to be improved. Either it's a organization at the ULB level or at the operator level, wherein separate streams are then carried. So, or the vehicle design, that needs to be seen here. The legal link, of course, municipal bylaws, provision for fining, but there could also be a sense of ownership and competition at the urban local body level, meaning different wards, different councillors responsible for their areas, municipal staff. So that could generate that sense of ownership at the community level. For the treatment, collection of segregated waste should coincide with the starting of treatment facility in the city. If a city is already pushing for segregation of waste and there's nothing there at the end, after a month, 2 months, 6 months, the system falters, and a faltered system to get back again on track when the operator is in place is very difficult. Things could happen, sensitization could happen. This is just some examples of how staff could be trained and a segregated system put in place. Awareness of communities, schools. So you need to address all aspects and then to move forward. Coming then to another question. How much material recycling is possible, or is it suitable? Can we use RDF from sorted MSW as AFR, alternative fuel resource? So there are isolated agreements between cement plants and urban local bodies. There's unclear financial, business consequences, or what really happens to the end user. So even if it's a municipal solid waste management plant, which has the RDF facility, you might be sending it to the cement plant for utilization or bricklines or whatever, but that the finances are still not clear. There's limited reliability of waste data at the ULB level or otherwise. Suitable pre-processing is still not clear. What is really accepted? A third question again, which and how much pre-processing is needed? Meaning, what is the end user really demanding from the ULB side? So if the concessionaire is, let's say, already part of the ULB, you're contracted by the ULB, you are part of it. And then the end user, the service provider, or further, even, the cement plant or whatever. There are certain models that have, emerged, which I have tried to collate. So the first is that a city has opted for an integrated system, like suppose Ramki in Hyderabad. The operator introduces RDF or sells it to nearby, boilers once the product is produced, or cement industry, or uses the RDF waste for drying within the plant, but not production of electricity. But the emission depends on the own combustion process. So there's no real, standard for the emission. The current MSW rules looks at boiler standards. The second option is there's a city which again has an integrated system. The operator is producing RDF and using it for own power generation, which we can see here Ranki is attempting to do it. Again, combustion depends on each system that is adapted at the city level or at the plant level, let's say. The third, city builds an RDF plant with or without capital funding. I've got GNNURM here, but probably some other subsidy from the state or city. The city operates its own RDF plant, but who is the end user? Nobody knows, or the system has not really taken off and the market is not really explored, because the financial angle is not really looked at. And a fourth is, when a city improves its solid waste management system, collects, has different operators, but most of it is going to the landfill. I think large part of our country is part of this model school. Coming to another question again, does co-processing provide a financially viable solution to all locations in India? This is a small study that we had done. At that time, about a year ago, there were about 27 plants, RDF plants in the country, and spread across, as you can see. And if you put these on the clinker facilities, the gray dots, circles that you have, is about a 200 kilometer as the crow flies distance. So it's not really a real-time distance, but as the crow flies. And if you just see that, you can see you could cover a large part of the country, but not the whole. And are there enough, because we have about 112 clinker units, so are there enough cement industries who could really use the RDF that is then used or produced rather by you? So probably Ramki is already exploring this waste to energy in-house facility of, but still the combustion process needs to be monitored. The system within the plant has to be specified according to certain regulations. Is it environmentally and economically viable to have sanitary landfills in every town in India. Something that was presented in the morning, Beijing having 600. I know Varanasi, UP going in for 14 sanitary landfills, but is it really needed? Should every city, every city does have an open dumping ground, but looking at GNNURM funding, is it really good that, without looking at it at a planning angle, do we really want each and every town to have a sanitary landfill? The issues of scarcity of land, construction, fast filling, organic dumping, whatever. You all know the issues. But there's no clear plan at the state level on how solid waste management for urban areas should be, which is probably the key to all our problems. Strategies so far for solid waste landfills, have been okay, strong state vision in some cases and guidance on how solid waste scenario within the state should look like. There would need to be probably, regional treatment and sanitary landfills being tried out. But still, as a strategy at the state or regional level, if the state is existing, is there a strategy at, district level or a regional level? I know of, 2 or 3 states who are attempting it. But beyond that, it really needs to be looked at. I would, conclude by saying segregation, of course, improves resource efficiency and financial viability. Composting is proven to be a locally sustainable, let's say, a technology in most cases. Financially viable and environmentally sound solutions for RDF are still to be mainstreamed. Probably the same that is being said here. Disposal, state support is needed for regional concepts, plans for small and medium towns, but even probably for the RDF, for whether, whether Delhi really needs those 3 waste to energy plants or how it is supposed to be. And municipal solid waste strategies which support urban local bodies for institutional capacity, institutional development, regional approaches, bylaws. You need very, very strong state guidance to move, and that state guidance could probably be pushed from the urban ministry and from the Ministry of Environment and Forests to give a direction. If it's addressed in the rule, where the rules are probably stipulating or specifying that every state needs to have a strategy with a vision or a goal for at least 30 years, we're saying the state needs to move in a certain direction. Do we need RDF facilities? Do we need landfills? Do we need, should we bundle the states? How should we bundle the urban local bodies? How are the bundling of urban local bodies happening? It has to be monitored at the state level. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Nandan.